Mark Gilman, along with Western Oregon head football coach Arne Ferguson. Coach, first we need to dedicate a little time to what was kind of a milestone win, and I know that you played Southern Utah years ago and beat them, but it's been a while since you beat a D1 school, and that game at Sacramento State, I tell you, it seemed like everybody was on their A game down there against the Hornets.
Yeah, first of all, it's the first game. If you remember last year, we played Portland State the last couple of years. They had a game and also 9 days ahead of us in practice. So that's a huge difference. So we're only behind, I think, 2 or 3 days or something like that between the Division I schedule. And very impressed with our players. First of all, offensively, no turnovers. That's a 0, and then defensively being able to get 3 turnovers. That was one to seal the game and one to pretty much start the game early with points. So that's a huge advantage for us. Then anytime you look at things, you look at extra yardage. We had maybe 6 penalties. A couple of those were delayed games. We pushed it on purpose to move the punt back. So really talking about 4 penalties. And that's a big deal being the first game. So we didn't shoot ourselves in the foot at all there. It was really positive. We had a couple of mistakes we'd like to fix with some young kids on penalties, but that's it. And then you add our special teams extra yardage. Paul Revis was the GNAC Player of the Week for all the GNAC. We had 175 yards total, and about 100 of those are on special teams. A huge punt to the house, open up punt that gained 35 yards. So those are really huge plays on a very special football player.
He was definitely maybe the highlight maker, but there were so many guys that got involved out on the field. Everybody from the newcomers like Stephen Long with that kickoff return, where, to be honest, he just kind of ran out of gas at the end, to seeing the 2 quarterback system. You talked about that. Boy, did it work effectively out there.
Yeah, it's really not a system. We're looking at ways that we can take advantage of both players that are extremely good. We also know that in our conference it's very competitive, and when you have 2 really highly skilled quarterbacks and be able to consistently get them playing time, that draws a little bit extra tension and 2 different game plans. So that helps us, we think, but also really helps our team that we're seeing things and that both are very skilled, but they're different, and they're able to work on their strengths, and that helps our offense keep flowing and keep moving. It's almost like an extra charge either way we go with that, and we went back and forth numerous times. I mean, Coach Harris and the offensive staff do an extremely good job of maximizing their personnel. I mean, you saw Wesley in a position, and for him to jump into a different position and score a touchdown and outrun some people, that's really exciting to see. And obviously Paul makes plays all over. But you also offensively saw some young players really develop. Malik Braxton's one of our starting tailbacks. I mean, he did a really good game of making people miss against a very athletic team. But you also saw Toriano Sweet come in on a huge drive that put us up by 16. I mean, that's pretty special for a true freshman, but also managed the clock. There's times when he could have got an extra 2 or 3 yards, but he slid down just to keep the clock going, and that's a pretty smart freshman.
There were so many folks that did that, and you talked about it again. The defense did very well. You talked about, before we went on, a little bit of game management, clock management, and the defense, sure, they gave up 30 points, but it was, to be honest, that was all part of just making Sac State really have to work for whatever they got, too.
Yeah, there's some young players in different positions that are really coming on their own, and to see them taking their lumps a little bit, but still get a win and still be able to, when you're up by 16 with 5 minutes left, the clock is really the issue, and being able to maximize that and keep people in long situations. I thought our D-line continued to get better. They really tried to go hurry up and wear them down, which is very consistent for what we see. Then also thought our linebackers, especially Bo Heiberger, had a very, very athletic game. He had like 14 tackles, 8 solo. It's nice to see him pretty much on his first real start being able to make some big plays.
It's a good way to start the season, and now you get to host to open the GNAC Central Washington. The word nemesis maybe sounds a little too sinister, but certainly a team that you guys love to play and love to beat. And talk about what you face against a Central team that really put a little pressure on Portland State last week.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm going to talk about our GNAC. Central Washington really played well against Portland State, who ranked 17th in the nation, a playoff team last year. And we really thought they played extremely toe-to-toe with them and just wore down a little bit towards the end. But that's the situation you get in when you play 1AA teams. We're really proud of our team being able to beat a Sac State team. You have Humboldt that went clear to Carson Newman, which we've done that before.
Yeah.
That's a 2-day trip and tough place to play, and they were able to, in a shootout, win. And then you have Azusa playing, I want to say, West Texas and A&M, who's a really good team, and they end up being successful. So that's a huge compliment to the GNAC. We know that every game's be extremely competitive, and we have a lot of things to work on. And we're just glad to play Sac State and end up being successful. But we know we have to get better against a really, really good Central Washington team.
Yeah. Now I know that throwing the football that's their big deal. They've thrown the ball awfully well, and you know that from last year. And they, with more experience, they're even better in that department.
Yeah, they're really doing a nice job of not making mistakes. Their quarterbacks have a lot of respect for him and receivers, and their O-line is probably the most improved group, very similar to us a little bit. So the trenches will really tell, along with some basically Zalt versus Revis. I mean, those two matchups are pretty great special players that just make things happen, and then the quarterbacks that are being able to do a lot of things. So.
And it just sounds like this one is almost cliche when you say it, but whoever controls the line of scrimmage in this game with Central, that's going to be huge in the contest.
Yeah, and we're fortunate to have this at home, but we know Central's extremely good. They're on the road against Portland State. I mean, we watched that and very impressed with what they did there.
All right. So, final thoughts as you head into this season after that big win. It's just a matter of building on what you guys did.
Yeah, we know it'll come down to a couple plays, and our players are working hard, being prepared mentally and physically, and we're excited to be at our first home game.
All right. Well, head coach Arne Ferguson, again, thank you for your time, and best of luck again with this next ball game.
Well, thank you, Mark. Really appreciate it.